Alright, let's do some stalls. First of all, again, clear the area. Let's fly some clearing turns to make sure there's no other traffic in the vicinity. Now after we've done that, we can start the maneuvers. Well, the key in stall recovery is reducing the angle of attack. So that's bringing the nose down. The aircraft stalls because you have exceeded the critical angle of attack. So the most important, and actually the only solution to getting out of a stall is reducing the angle of attack. And actually the aircraft can stall at any speed if you exceed the critical angle of attack. Well, let's just start with a power on stall, so we just leave the power setting as it is. And we'll get the nose up. So we're increasing our angle of attack. And when we hear the stall warning horn, we recover. And recovery means pushing the nose down, reducing the angle of attack. We let the speed build up again, and we're in level flight. So that's pretty easy, just push the nose down. You don't have to push it into a dive, just get it below the current level, or I mean roughly on the horizon, or a bit below. You don't really have to go into a steep dive, because all you actually need is bring the angle of attack below the critical angle of attack. Alright, now we'll try the same power off. So reduce the power to idle, and then just try to keep my altitude until I hear the stall warning, and the recovery then will be, well, also to push the nose down, so reduce the angle of attack, and also apply full power. We don't actually need full power to break the stall, because all we need is reducing the angle of attack, but putting the power in helps us to maintain or not to lose as much altitude and to build up the speed faster. Alright, so I reduced the power to idle. We're on 6,100 feet now. I'll try to maintain that until I hear the stall warning. Okay, then I brought the nose down, applied full power, and we lost roughly 100 feet. Now those 100 feet, they don't sound very much, but we're at high altitude. So a stall here is not really dangerous. If you know the recovery, stall is dangerous close to the ground, especially if it develops into a spin. And we'll look at that in the spin avoidance lesson. Alright, now I'd like to demonstrate that for getting out of the stall, it's only important to reduce the angle of attack. So we're now doing the same. I'll get the power to idle and maintain the altitude, 6,000 feet. But for recovery, I will not add any power. I'll just push the nose down. And we'll see that works as well, but we'll of course lose more altitude. Alright, now let's do the same with flaps. So we'll have a power off stall with flaps. It's the kind that probably would happen to you if you're on approach. So the speed is already in the white arc, so I'm reducing or extending the flaps now to the approach or actually landing setting full flaps. So we'll pretend we would be on a landing approach and we don't pay attention and we get into a stall. So the same procedure actually applies. However, after putting the nose down and applying power, you also retract the flaps one step, and then if the speed is high enough, you can retract the flaps further. Alright, power to idle and getting the nose up. Okay, the first flaps are retracted. We have lost roughly 100 feet. I'm above 60 knots, so I can retract the flaps further and accelerate. Alright, so far we have only seen approaches to stall, because when the stall warning sounds, it's not a stall. It's still a few knots away from stall. So let's see what the airplane does if you actually approach a stall closer. I reduce the power and I pull the nose up, and I'm not going to recover at the first stall warning, but I'll wait. What will happen that you feel is that you feel a buffet, so the airplane will start to rock. The controls will get mushy a bit, less precise. And then if you continue into the stall, to the full stall, then it's depending on the airplane, how nice it is when handling stalls. Sometimes just the nose will drop, but sometimes also a wing will drop, and then it's going to be dangerous because they could develop into a spin. So, yep, you see that's what happened now. So a wing was dropping, but I've now reduced the angle of attack, adding some power, and we're out of the stall. So the key with stalls is simply to avoid them. Always be aware of your airspeed and angle of attack. Because stalling is not a big deal at this altitude, because we have a lot of room to recover, but it can be a real problem if you're close to the ground. We should also discuss the increase in airspeed, the increasing stalling speed in a turn. So the more bank you have in a turn, the higher the stalling speed will be. 20% more at 45 degrees bank and even 40% more at 60 degrees bank. So always take that into account as well. We could try that. So I'll just put us into a high angle of attack, and then I'll start a turn. First we'll keep the wings level, and then we'll pay attention when the stall warning will sound. At 50 knots. Okay, so let's fly a bit faster. 55, and let's do a turn. Yeah, have you heard that? Now the stall warning was on at 60 knots as I increased the bank angle. So that was 10 knots faster. And as I've said, if you really roll into a high bank, 60 degrees bank is normally the limit for most normal category aircraft. You can hear the stall warning now at 70 knots. So there's a dramatic increase in airspeed with a high in stalling speed with a high bank. Keep this in mind, because the most dangerous condition to have a stall normally, or the most common, is during approach on the turn to final. When the speed is low, you overshoot the final and you try to force it around the corner, so to speak, and you don't think about stall speed, and you have a stall in the turn to final with low altitude and not much margin to recover from the stall. Okay, so always be aware of your stalling speed, your angle of attack, and the key here is to be safe from stalls, never to get into one. This concludes this lesson. See you in the next one.